Hi, everyone. Welcome to week three, part two of AI journalism. It was good to see everybody live on Zoom on Tuesday. But today we're back on pre-recorded classes. We're going to have two videos, one that covers a training deck, the other one that covers the midterm paper topic. So we're in the week three module if you're working out of Canvas, week three folder if you're working out of Google Drive. Google Drive does have a few more things in it, like the training decks. They put the PowerPoints in there. I don't like putting them up on Canvas just for copyright reasons, but you guys do have access to them and can keep them since you're taking the class. So I always do that just to protect my own work. So your video lecture is going to be right here on the syllabus and the course schedule. And then the midterm video where we go over the midterm paper, which is very important, will be right here. So this first video, we're talking about this slideshow, and it's kind of about what AI can do for you as a journalist. Because we've talked about a lot of different things so far, prompt writing and how large language models work, and kind of all this behind the scenes stuff. Now we're starting to transition into prompt writing, how we can take and use it journalistically, and moving forward, we're going to talk about law and ethics, and then start really getting our hands dirty and building images and multimedia and editing with it, doing some really practical hands-on work with it, which is the best way to learn how to use it. So this is kind of a transition slideshow. Really, how does this fit into journalism? The name of the class is AI into journalism. Now we're kind of marrying the two together. And this is a great quote. It comes from Mackenzie Warren, who oversees the Medill Local News Accelerator, based out of Northwestern University. Mackenzie's a good friend of mine. I've done a lot of trainings for him through the Medill Local News Accelerator, and also when he was at Gannett in USA Today. So I've known him for years. I knew him actually as a college student many years ago. And he was talking about, kind of the emergence of AI tools in newsrooms a few years ago. And the second part of the quote I think is very interesting. As time goes on, the tools get simpler and more powerful, and the producers get more capable. And we're kind of entering that area now where, 2026, 2027, we're starting to see these tools become much easier to use. It's much easier to build tools with vibe coding, which is something I'm going to show you a little bit later in the semester, how you can build your own tools, which is really, really cool. And so we're kind of seeing, this projection from Mackenzie a few years ago, prediction, is starting to come true. We're starting to see this evolve. I like this other quote from Meredith Broussard, who's a data journalist. She teaches at NYU. And she goes, even if you don't think you're using AI, you most likely are, because it powers everything like Google. And I've mentioned that in this class a few times. So for your professors that tell you they're banning AI in their classes, they're not really banning AI. AI is baked into basically everything we do. AI is not special. It's not magic. It's another technology. There are some special things we can do with it, but we have to remember, we've been through this evolution in your lifetimes, since you've been in school. Going back to kindergarten, we've seen social media emerge, data journalism emerge, mobile technologies emerge that enable us to do many, many cool things. And in my lifetime, God, we went from writing on typewriters to now producing digital content using nothing more than some text in a large language model. You can do some fabulous stuff with it. The journalist's approach with AI, we tend to target things that are repetitive tasks. How can AI relieve the workload? And how can it help us better connect to our audiences? Every time we're thinking of producing something using AI or an AI tool, is it saving me time? And how does it help me better tell this story or better connect to my readers? Can it analyze and understand my audience well enough? Have I written a prompt that targets my audience well enough? That's really what we're looking for here. And, it really needs to uphold your newsroom mission and values. And when I do trainings in newsrooms, that's something I talk to them about. If you have very strong ethical views in your publication, which I hope most of them do. Maybe there's certain parts of AI you don't want to implement. You don't want it to write your stories for you. We certainly don't in this class, but we can use it to edit, enhance, to create summaries or multimedia based off of our written stories that we've done ourselves and vetted and applied our journalistic values to. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into law and ethics next week. What can AI do for you? And this is kind of beyond just journalism and media is kind of hanging out over here. But it's baked into, sports. If we see a pitch count or a pitch challenged in Major League Baseball, if you're at a baseball game and, the batter or the manager challenges a pitch, they use AI to see if that ball was or pitch was a ball or a strike. It's baked into real-time stats in almost any sports event we watch. It's used heavily in cybersecurity, politics, and government. The government has several deals with Google and OpenAI. There was a big controversy back in the spring of 2026 about some of our defense contracts, but really they've been using AI for years, either in-house or through these large language models where they purchase, the AI from a tool like Perplexity or ChatGPT or whatever. It's used heavily in agriculture, irrigation, uses a lot of artificial intelligence, gaming, all kinds of different mediums and work and workspaces. What can it do specifically for journalists? It'll do, I'm going to show about 3 or 4 slides of these things. And we won't do all of these in class, but we'll do some of them. It's good at email sorting and classification. Investigative reporters do a lot of that. It can organize and format police blotters. It's really good at formatting things. So if you take a bunch of notes and want to reformat it maybe as a timeline, it'll do that. If you have a bunch of dates in your notes and you want to format it as a timeline and then write off of that format, you can. It's good at creating keywords and hashtags for search engine optimization for your stories, for social media. Oftentimes I'll take one of my stories or my newsletters, I push it into a large language model and ask it to, generate some hashtags in keywords and hooks, and even sometimes even write a social media post based off my story. I don't have it just randomly write something. It's based off that. It's really good at writing interview questions. We talked about that in prompts earlier this semester. It'll automate public meeting summaries. We'll work with a tool that is really good at breaking down public meetings into 5-minute increments, so we can kind of pull what we need out of that long 2.5-hour meeting, and be able to get our background for our story in just a matter of minutes. It's really, really cool. It's good at scraping data off of web pages and PDFs. We're going to do that later this semester. It's really good at creating data visualizations. We spent a whole week on that. It'll generate lists of story ideas. We did that in class, last class period, where we talked about, how to generate a story idea and make it specific to our audience. It'll create event agendas, really good at creating frameworks to work off of or templates to work off of. It's really good at creating lists of frequently asked questions. We'll work with Notebook LM later this semester. We can, I'll show you a little prompt you can write and take like your midterm paper or final project and write an FAQ based off of your paper, which is really good. It's writing, but it's writing based off of your own work, your own writing. So it's not, writing from scratch for you. It'll write summaries or extract info from blocks of text, mainly a story. Again, it'll create social media calendars, summarize and extract text from a block of text, info from a block of text. It'll automate routine administrative tasks, scheduling, invoicing, record keeping. So a lot of the business people in media use that. It'll extract keywords, like metadata out of images, web pages, stories. It'll draft emails and responses, and of course, edit those heavily. Typically don't use it for a lot of writing in here, but some people do in the business world. It'll do meeting outlines, project budgets, a lot of analysis stuff. It'll generate customized newsletters based on user preferences and interests. I've done this. I've loaded in some of my past newsletters and asked it to brainstorm new newsletter ideas, and just ideas, not write the newsletters, but generate some ideas based off what I've written in the past. What else would my audience, which has read these top 10 newsletters and their topics, what else should I be writing for this audience? And it makes some interesting suggestions. I still control what I write, but it's offering me suggestions for that. Again, templates for news stories and things like that. So students use it for outlining, and that's fine. It's really good at analyzing social media and other online sources for story leads and trends. You can download a lot of social media posts and say, how can I develop this into a story? And it'll offer some suggestions. How's our audience using AI right now? And this is kind of interesting. I'm going to work backwards here. In 2026, the trend we're seeing, and it hasn't finished yet, the demand has really grown for agentic tools and vibe coded tools. We'll vibe code a little later this semester by users to complete work tasks. So I'm building tools like a custom GPT that's uh, built into the Journalist Toolbox website to help people find tools without poring over all of the lists of links in my website. They can use my custom GPT to just go through and find it. And I'm building some other tools for the site as well. There's also this Harvard Business Review study that you see to the right that from 2024 to 2025, their study showed they do a top 10 list of what are the most commonly used tasks in this big survey. It was US based, but it was a very diverse group of people that they surveyed. Back in 2024, this is a couple of years ago, people were using it to generate ideas and do a specific search or editing text, troubleshooting, enhanced learning, things like that. But by 25, we saw a little shift into more things like therapy and companionship, organizing my life, finding purpose, things like that. We begin to use it in a more personal way, connected to the technology a little bit more, which is kind of interesting because, in 2024, general advice was way down here. Therapy and companionship was, number two, but it jumped up to number one. And these other things shot up the list and, generating ideas and, kind of the work stuff dropped down a bit. But now in 2026, we're seeing that return to more laborious tasks that it's, doing for us. If we go way back to 2023, this was a study that the Associated Press did, and this is asking newsroom editors, what do you need from AI? It was a study that they did with 300 editors and newsroom leaders, executive type levels. And they were really turning to AI back then for transcription. We still use it a lot for that. Social media content creation, they load their stories and use it to create a social media post. Structuring data, story recommendations, things like that. We still use these a lot, but if you go through time here, and I've done these in reverse order, we've really evolved from that. Our readers have. They don't necessarily use it the way we think it should be used as journalists, which is kind of interesting. So, something to think about. How's our audience using this technology? How can we help them better understand it? Or how can we help use this technology to help us better understand our audience and tailor content to fit that audience? So how are reporters using AI now? Generate story ideas, develop interview questions, transcription, kind of doing editing on the back end of a story too. We'll do that a little later this semester. I've touched on it earlier this semester. Summarize documents and video, foreign language translations, always double check those. It does make mistakes. Help with writing social media posts and really assigning AI a role when you ask it to do something, particularly the large language models. We talked about that in the earlier class. Some of the bad things happening with AI, it makes it easier to create misinformation and disinformation. There are AI-driven content farms. Almost half of all stories that are being put on the web right now are written by AI and coming from these content farms. It's very scary. It's harder to fact check images and videos. We'll actually give you some skills on that a little later this semester. If you've had my digital verification class last summer, you've got those skills already, but we'll cover it in this class. AI has gender and race biases, but we're going to talk about custom instructions, which we've talked about earlier, and really applying those. You can filter out a lot of the gender and race and age biases in AI by telling it to see a bigger picture and be more diverse in its answers. And you always want to think about, where's my data going when I'm putting something into AI, my story, my prompts. God, any personal information, be very careful with that because it can be sold off in most cases. Sports Illustrated, this is a little case study here on how not to use AI. Sports Illustrated used a content farm to produce AI-driven sports stories. but they lied to their readers and put fake bylines on these stories in fake bios. This guy, you see over here, it was generated by AI, including his photo and his made-up bio, and they put these bylines on stories. Now, the content farm was doing it and putting it out under Sports Illustrated's uh, website banner. And Futurism, this little link to the website here, and story about it. Futurism is the one that caught him, which is really interesting. So, but it was one of the early big misuses of AI. And remember, news sites are turning, out questionable content all the time. It's very easy to use these chatbots to create a fake news story. And when Futurism says news sites, they're using that term very loosely. Some are experimenting with it. Cleveland Plain Dealer, a long-respected news outlet, is having editors and reporters, edit the stories that AI turns out. It's an experiment that's going to fail miserably. But there are mainstream media outlets that are experimenting with this and really struggling with it. But most people that are turning out these AI-driven stories are creating fake news pieces to mislead people. How do you approach your use of AI? Think about, if you bought a new car that has a lot of tech on it, you keep some of the tech turned on, like, maybe the warnings if you're changing lanes. Some of it you'll turn off or lower the levels. You'll customize that tech in that automobile to fit your needs. Same way if you bought a phone, what's the first thing you do? You customize it. New screensaver, new ringtone, custom apps to fit your needs. You can do that with AI too. You can customize to fit your needs with those custom instructions or preferences. You put into Claude or ChatGPT, and then toss away what you don't need. You adapt with it, but do so cautiously. Journalists tend to approach AI with a cautious curiosity, and I think that's a good way to approach it. Really trust your gut and ask yourself, just because I can do something with this tool, should I? And am I creating something that's socially beneficial or potentially harmful? We're going to talk about ethics in the coming weeks, copyright, which is a big concern. And ask yourself, is this really saving me time or creating more work? And is it helping me reach my audience better? Always think about that North Star. What are the one or two things you really need AI to do for you besides write your stories or your papers? What are some skills you wish you had in your toolbox that maybe AI can do for you? How can it save you time? Be very careful with transcription tools. I gave you a warning earlier this semester with this as well. Tools like Otter.ai, it's a phone app. It's also a desktop version. You can record live into it, or you can upload audio into it, and it will transcribe it with amazing accuracy. It's really the Ferrari Otter is of free and paid AI tools. The free model gives you 600 minutes a month, which is more than enough for me. It's more than enough for most students. But if you're using the paid model, it has the same privacy settings as your free version. And the privacy settings on there is basically Otter can sell off anything that you put in here, any audio, any transcript. And be very careful with these, especially when we start interviewing people. They may be speaking about something that's very personal and very private for you, for your story. And it can potentially be outed and sold off. So make sure you're very careful with what you put in here. For a routine interview, transcribing is fine. There's a little link here to an article in a Politico where it talks about the privacy issues, not just with Otter, but Descript and Trent and many other audio transcription tools. There are a lot of them up on the Journalist Toolbox website. If you look at the audio page, I've got several free and some paid transcription tools out there. Transcription tools are awesome. They save you a ton of time. Nothing's worse than trying to transcribe a 2-hour interview when you can just have an AI tool do it in a matter of minutes and have it be accurate. So we're going to show you Otter with some hands-on work a little later in the semester when we get into your midterm and final projects a little deeper. Google Gemini, it's very helpful with writing Freedom of Information Act requests. If you're requesting public records sometime as a journalist, you can now upload a photo, and we'll do this a little later in the semester, and ask about its authenticity and origin through a tool in Google Gemini called SynthID. It'll tell you if the tool was, if the image was built in a Gemini tool. You can also fact check Gemini results by clicking on the Google logo at the bottom, and you get the Google search results. that it provides. So, asking a prompt how it may be useful for journalists. I do that with any new tool that I go to use. It's particularly large language models. Tell me what you do well. Tell me what you do poorly, and how might this be valuable to me as a journalist? And the tools will tell you their strengths and weaknesses and its value to journalists. These are my credits. These are people that I listen to and learn from to help develop these decks. So that's it for this video. Our next video will be on the midterm paper topics and how to pitch them. So hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in person next week, I promise.